Hey guys, today we're starting our unit on circles. And so for today, what we're going to be doing is talking about the equation of circles like on a graph. So basically, like the basic equation is going to be x squared plus y squared equals r squared, with r being the radius. And so I went ahead and graphed just x squared plus y squared equals 1 so that you can see like what the basic circle equation is going to come out as, where we have that radius of 1 and the center is just at the origin. And then obviously these circles can be shifted left or right, and you can change the radius, and we're going to talk today about how you're going to do that. Okay, so first we have the standard form of a circle where you're moving it left and right. So the x minus h is going to be how far like left and right you're using it, and then the y minus k is how far up and down you're moving it. But basically the x minus h and y minus k, the center is just going to be at hk. So like whatever you have in there with the x or whatever you have in there with the y, the center, it's already in the right order for you, and you're just going to do the opposite of whatever number is in there. And then it's all equal to r squared, which r is just the radius. So whatever number is over here on this side, you would take the square root of that, and that would be your radius. However, sometimes you're not going to see the standard form of the circle, you're going to see the general form instead. And the general form is going to be written something like this, where D, E, and F are just going to be numbers. But if you're given the general form and you want to find the center and radius, then you're going to have to rewrite it back into the standard form, and we're going to talk about a method you can use to do that today. However, while you're here, go ahead and write down at least the standard form so that you know where the center and radius are for each of these. So then I want to start with a pretty basic example, or a couple of examples, where the first one is write an equation of a circle with a center at -4, 3 and a radius at 4. So we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is going to equal r squared. And then we have that hk is -4, 3 and the radius is 4. So if I come in here and remember that -4 is h and 3 is k, then I'm just going to fill in all of those numbers to write an equation. So I would have x minus -4, so it would end up being x plus 4 squared, plus y minus k, so k is 3 squared, equals the radius squared, so that would be 4 squared, which ends up being 16. So that would be my equation if I was given that center and a radius of 4. And then in example 2, it tells you to find the center and radius of the circle. So the center is just going to be at hk, and then we have our hk in here. And so our h is going to be a positive 16 because you have x minus h. And then our k is supposed to be y minus k. So since it's a positive 9, our k is actually going to be a -9. And then the radius, remember, is going to be the square root of whatever this number is over here. So the square root of 144, which is going to be 12. So that gives us our center and radius of that equation. Okay, so then taking a step kind of away from circles for a second, we're going to talk about completing the square, because that's the process we're going to use to get from the general form back to the standard form so that we can find the center and radius. So if you have an equation like x squared plus 6x equals 7, and you want to complete the square on that equation, then the first thing that you're going to do is to add a blank just on both sides. Like you add a blank to the left-hand side and you add a blank to the right-hand side. And then to figure out what number goes in the blank, you do b divided by 2 squared. So remember, in like a typical equation, you're going to have ax squared plus bx plus c. So b is just going to be that number in front of your x. So in our blank, we're going to do 6 divided by 2 squared. And you're going to want to actually like evaluate what that is. So in our blank, we need 6 divided by 2 squared which 6 divided by 2 is 3, and then we need to square that, so it's going to be 9. So this 9 is what's going in our blank. So I would have x squared plus 6x plus 9. And then whatever you put in your blank on the left-hand side also goes in the blank on the right-hand side so that you keep your equation balanced. So then that takes care of step 1. And the b divided by 2 squared, that's just something you're going to have to remember to do each time. And then the next step is to simplify the right-hand side. So we have x squared plus 6x plus 9. And then on the right-hand side, we have 7 plus 9. So we're going to simplify that just by adding those two numbers together. So 7 plus 9 is going to give us 16. And then you want to rewrite the left-hand side. So we have x squared plus 6x plus 9, and we want to factor that. So x squared plus 6x plus 9 is going to factor to x plus 3 times x plus 3. So that's just x plus 3 squared, and it would equal 16. And then a note for when you're factoring each time is just that your factor is always going to end up being x plus whatever the b value is, or whatever the b value is divided by 2. So whatever that number is like before you squared it originally, that's going to go in your factor. So like we have b divided by 2 squared, so it ended up being 3 squared. So that 3 is what's going in our factor. And then that number, or that factor, is just going to end up being squared. So we're going to practice this process a few more times, but make sure that you write the steps down now so that you know where we're going with this. And I promise it starts to get easier after you've seen it a few times as well. Okay, so now we're going to do it with a circle. And the biggest difference here from what we just did is that we need to complete the square for x and for y. So one thing that I'm going to tell you as a tip is in the beginning, you're going to want to group your x's and your y's. So you're going to want those separate, and that was supposed to be an x. So you're going to want to group your x's and y's. So what I mean by that is when I'm going to rewrite our equation, and I would have x squared, and then I want my 2x with that. And then the weird thing here is you're going to end up adding a couple of different blanks in this one. So I have my x squared plus 2x, and I need to complete the square for x. So I'm going to go ahead and add a blank for x. And then I'm going to do plus, and let me change the color here so that you can tell a difference. So I have plus y squared plus 4y. And then I want a separate blank for my y's. And then that is going to equal, let's say 9 plus my x blank. So plus the x blank, and then plus the y blank. So I tried to color code that here, so hopefully that'll help a little bit. So then I'm just gonna go back to using black for my ink. So then for my x squared plus 2x plus that blank, let me not do that yet, actually. Sorry. So first I'm just going to figure out like what to put in the blanks. So for my x blank, I would have b divided by 2 squared. So that would be 2 divided by 2 squared, which is just 1 squared, which is just 1. So for my red blank or my x blank, I'm just going to add a 1, and I need to do that on both sides. And so then I need to figure out for my y blank, so I'm going to have my other b, which in this case is 4, divided by 2 squared. And so then 4 divided by 2 is 2, and then when I square that, I get 4. So for my y blank, or my blue blank, I need a 4. And so now I have everything written out like that, and I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my left-hand side because I don't want to do anything to that quite yet. So I would have x squared plus 2x plus 1 plus y squared plus 4y plus 4. And then that is going to equal 9 plus 1 plus 4. So that's going to end up being 14 on that side because I want to go ahead and simplify that. So now is when I rewrite my left-hand side, and I'm going to do that by factoring. So I need to factor my x squared plus 2x plus 1 separately from my y squared plus 4y plus 4. So for my x factor, I'm going to end up with x plus 1 squared because I'm just going to do x plus that b divided by 2. So 2 divided by 2 gives me 1, so I just need x plus 1 squared. And then for my y factor, I'm going to end up with y plus 2 squared. And then all of that is going to equal 14. So for my y factor there, I just did the 4 divided by 2. So that for my b divided by 2 thing, for my factor, I just did 4 divided by 2, which gave me the plus 2 in there. And so then that puts everything in standard form for us. So this is the equation that we're going to want to use to find the center and radius. So the center would be at HK. So remember, we're just going to use like the opposite of these numbers that are in our factor. So it's actually going to be at -1, -2. And then the radius is going to be the square root of whatever number is on the other side. So it's actually going to be the square root of 14. And we're just going to leave it written as the square root of 14 instead of simplifying so that it'll be like the most accurate possible answer. Okay, so now we are going to do this with just one more example so that you see it all the way through again. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to rewrite the equation and group our x's and our y's. So I'm going to have x squared minus 18x, and I need plus my x blank. And then I'll have plus y squared minus 18y plus my y blank. And then I have that plus 53. I'm going to go ahead and subtract it over to the other side. So I'm going to have equals -53 on the other side because I don't want any other numbers over on this side other than what we're already using over here. So then I have x squared minus 18x plus that blank. So for that blank, I need my b value, which is -18 divided by 2, and then that's going to be squared. So my -18 divided by 2 is going to give me -9, and then -9 squared is going to give me 81. So for my blank, I need 81. And then my y b value is actually the same thing. So my y blank is also going to be 81. And then I actually forgot to put my blanks over on this side, so watch out for that. Make sure that if you put a blank over here, you put a blank over here. So I need 81s in both of those as well. And then I need to start simplifying. So before I go into all of the factoring and everything, I'm going to go ahead and do x squared minus 18x plus 81 plus y squared minus 18y plus 81, and then all of that is going to equal -53 plus 81 plus 81, which is going to give us 109 as our simplified right-hand side. So now is when I'm going to factor. So I need to factor my x's, which is going to factor into x minus 9 squared, because I'm using that -18 divided by 2. That gives us -9. Plus, same thing over here, because we also have a -18. So I would have y minus 9 squared. And then all of that is going to equal 109. So my center on this one is actually going to be at 9, 9. Because I'm going to use the opposite of these -9s, which is going to give me both positive 9s. And my radius is going to be at the square root of 109. And with the radius, like I said, just leave it as the square root of 109 for this one. If it happened to be a perfect square, like if you had a 144 over there, then just write that the radius is 12. But if it's not a perfect square, then you can just leave it as the square root of whatever number is over there. And that is pretty much it for equations of circles.